How's it going, everybody? Last time I was able to drag this thing out of a barn and just give it a quick pressure wash and get it running just by cleaning the carburetor. The carburetor was filthy, and luckily it seems to run and operate really well. And so this time I've got some parts for it. I've got a battery, oil filter, air filter, and rear wheel bearing and brake shoes and seal for the right hand side because it's leaking back there and the brakes are wet and don't work, and so maybe we can get that sealed back up and get some fresh brake shoes in it and get the rear brake working. But also last time I got the rack straightened back up, got the front bumper pulled back out some, and it's looking pretty good. I got a little bit dirty test riding it, but we'll go ahead and get into fixing it here, and maybe we'll go on another little test ride after everything's together. So the air filter comes out with just that screw, releases the clamp, and then this one comes off of here. But you can see the old filter has just disintegrated and fallen into the bottom of the air box. So I'm gonna get some stuff and clean that out, and then I can install my new filter. Might as well let the oil be draining while I'm putting the air box and the battery back in to 17 millimeter. Whew. A little bit sludgy in the bottom. So I got the box wiped out pretty good. New Kawasaki OEM air filter element. Looks kind of like carpet. But it'll do the job. That thing must be a little warped. Feels like it's on there good though. Well, that'll be done under the seat. Get the new battery in, new air filter. The oil should be about done draining, so we'll go ahead and change the oil filter. This linkage is sticky sometimes. There we go. Might need a little WD-40 on it. Now, there we go. Just finished up the oil change. Maybe you can see the level there. As soon as my funnel gets done draining, I'll put the plug back in, the fill plug, and we'll give it a test fire and see how it goes. See if our battery works good. All right, I'm gonna try the battery out. It's cold, kind of cold, and it hadn't been started, so. Sounds good. That oil was really nasty, so it needed an oil change pretty bad. And I think it was overfull, probably from a little bit of gas in the oil. Well, I think that only leaves a couple things left. Need to fix these little holders for the rack and tighten up the rear rack a little bit. And then I need to pull the rear wheel, do the bearings, seals, and brakes, and this thing will be finished up. We'll do a quick light check now that we've got the batteries in, or the battery. There's high beam. Low, and there's high. We got our neutral light. Reverse light works. Go back to neutral. And we got one tail light. Need to put a bulb in the other one. Well, today is the day for the rear right side wheel bearing and axle seal and new brake shoes, hopefully. I've got all the parts I think I should need. I need to get the wheel off, obviously. I've seen a video of somebody doing it, and they disconnected the axle tube right here from the differential and disconnected those two bolts, and they took the whole tube out. I'm kind of hoping I can leave all that attached and maybe use the axle shaft to pull the bearing out, but we'll see how it goes and what it looks like when I get in there. I may end up having to take that tube off, but it'll be easier if I don't have to. So get the wheel off and take a look at it. Pretty chilly today. See, everything's oily in there because of this seal. Those are all nasty too. Definitely weren't going to have any brakes ever with that. I'd say those have never been out, probably. I believe that's the retainer for the bearing right there. Not much to it, really. Now I've just got to figure out a way to possibly pull this out. I don't have a slide hammer, not a good one. Guess I should invest in one, huh? Let me see what I can come up with. Here's a quick look at what I'm working with. You can see the little square retainer plate where it bolted up. That held the bearing race in on the outside there. And the bearing is a little loose. I'm not sure if that's coming through on video. But it's a little loose. That's probably part of the problem. But you can see it's been leaking for a long time. It's nasty. So what I want to try to do is just, since the retainer plate is off, I'd like to just be able to pull this bearing with the axle shaft. The axle has a larger part that runs against this inner race on the bearing, so since the bearing's still together, especially if I could heat this a little bit, it could pull the bearing with it, and then we could just put it all back together in one piece without taking this whole axle tube out. So I'm going to see what I can come up with. This is what I've come up with. I've got one outer bearing race off of like a razor. It's quite a bit bigger than the outer race that's in this axle. This is a complete ball bearing, just kind of using it as a spacer. It kind of slides around, so I have to push everything together and make it fit good. This is a rocker bridge, well, the rocker pedestal, off of a DT466. It's got a hole in it that's plenty big for the axle. This is an old shaft, like lock collar for a bearing that's just big enough to fit as a spacer. And I've got one more little shim here and the axle nut. I'm going to take all this off. I'm going to heat that real good around where the bearing is in there. Then I'll use my impact to see if I can't draw that axle out. Alright, that should be good. I'll go ahead and show you that bearing's coming out. It's probably about halfway out, but it's moving now, so really all I have to do is add a little more spacer and pull it the rest of the way. I changed my spacer setup a little bit to accommodate for the axle being out farther, and now we'll see if we can pull it on out. There it is. Oh yeah, that bearing's trash. It's pretty crappy feeling. So there's nothing holding this axle in except for the retainer plate on the outside of this bearing. And the axle steps up right behind the bearing. So between that and the retainer plate, the bearing holds the axle from going in or out. The seal runs right here where you can see the little clean mark. It's down here in the axle tube still. You can see it's pretty cruddy in there. I should be able to pull this seal out. Hopefully. There's the seal. So now I can clean that tube out and put my new seal in, put the bearing on the axle shaft, heat this up, and drive it back in. So here's the new setup. The kit came with both sides. I'm just going to do the side that's leaking right now. You can see this is the old seal, so that'll be this small one. And then the bearing, 6205 RS. You probably can get that at your local parts store if you're in a pinch. These are just cheap cheap parts, but they'll probably last a long time in this little four-wheeler. So I'm going to put this in the press and press the bearing off. It should come off pretty easy, hopefully. So I'll press that off, and then I'll probably drive the new one on, but we'll see. I may end up pressing it on too, just depends. And then I'll go ahead and slip this in my axle tube. It should just kind of, it'll either push in by hand, or I can take a seal driver or a socket and kind of get it squared away in there. There's the seal. Well, y'all ain't gonna believe this, but I set the axle shaft up in the press. The bearing was holding it on my blocks, and it was dangling straight down. And I hadn't quite got ready to start pumping yet. No pressure on it, and it just slid off. So I guess it wasn't as tight of a fit as I would have thought it would have been. I'm not sure how the new one will go on, but I'm gonna try that now. First though, I'm gonna take something and clean this sealing surface up because it's kind of rusty. Well, I got the sealing surface cleaned up best I could. It looks kind of bad, but it's pretty smooth. It is slightly pitted, but it's probably gonna be okay. The bearing just pushed on by hand, so I guess we're ready to go back together. Alright, we'll try to go easy here. There we go. Got our spines engaged. Now I'm going to use the old bearing to drive this new one in. Should work okay. I did heat that up just a little, but not much because I didn't want to damage the new seal. I had to find me a piece of tubing to fit over the shaft here, and now I can drive it evenly. There it is. New seals inside, new bearing. Everything's back together, and we didn't have to pull the tube off, so that was nice. Now is not, I don't know, maybe the worst part. I'm gonna clean all this up, and I have to clean the brake drum up. And then this will all go right back together. Should be pretty easy from here. Alright, got the hub back on, new brake shoes, new bearing, seal. So I'm gonna put the wheel back on and fill the diff back up with oil, and maybe we'll go for a test drive. Well, the only thing we like on the Bayou is finishing up these racks. I'll have to get a bolt for this. I don't have one that fits it well. So for right now, I'm just gonna run a zip tie through it. But the rear, there's nothing wrong with it. Just needs these rubber isolators. There's one here and one there, and they both need to be back under these little loops here. The rear brake works pretty good. I bought some cheap shoes for it though, and they didn't fit good at all. Had to kind of modify them to make them work correctly. Not real happy with how the fitment was for sure. I think the company advertising them really should do a little better than that. But I guess sometimes it's what you get when you don't buy OEM. So I'm gonna get the racks tightened up, and this thing will be done. Might have to go for a little test drive. So I'm gonna get the racks done and we'll go from there. I don't know how I missed it before, but the VIN is right here behind the shifter. And this one has a W, which means it's a 1998 model. So I did figure that out. All right, I got my zip tie in the front there just to hold that one on. I actually already lost that piece once. It was kind of jammed on there and I didn't think it would go anywhere, and when I test rode it, it went somewhere. It fell off in the yard. Finally got this one over here was a problem. There's kind of a bend in the bar there, and it has to fit just so for those bolts to go in. But they're back on there and tight, so the rear rack pretty solid now. It was kind of clanging and stuff before. But I say let's go for a quick drive and see how it does now that everything's done. Brushy back in here. could almost drive under there, but I ain't going to. Okay, well, this thing seems to be running really good. No issues that I can tell. So clean the carburetor on it and straighten the racks out, and put a rear right side wheel bearing and seal in the axle tube, and also did the drum brakes on that side and the rear. Front brakes are already working good, so we didn't have to fool with those. It looks pretty good. It's not new anymore, but still pretty good looking little machine. When I say little, it's way too small for me. There's not much room for me to maneuver around on it. I definitely can't slide back on the seat because it's already way too light in the front with me on it, so. But runs good, fires right up. Got new batteries, so no issues there. Sounds good. Don't see any major leaks or anything like that. So I think it's in good shape. I appreciate y'all watching. Hopefully have some more ATV content and maybe some other, well, I'm sure there'll be some other revivals on some old ATVs, trying to get them to run again, see if they're worth fixing or not. But that's all for this one, and thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all next time.